How likely is it that we are going to see this 4-day truce extended by another 2 days to be extended again?
I think we're taking it day by day, Julia. The reality is one where society, Israeli society, for the last 6 days have been in a constant state of stress, glued to television sets, social media, trying to grasp every piece of information of who's coming out today, what to expect, what is their condition. And indeed, we are making the necessary preparations today in order to be prepared for another release, which would actually mean we need to evacuate them from the hostages from the border area, take them to an initial medical checkup, initial mental health checkup, and then pass them on to the other health authorities here in Israel. So we are operating on a day-by-day basis, trying to be prepared for the eventuality, but also understanding that we have a ruthless, merciless enemy that is trying to make, or I would say trying to maximize the extent of the pain on Israeli society.
Well, indeed. I mean, a lot of the defenders of Hamas, who I've found extraordinary in Western media world, and indeed many on the international scene, seem to think we should be grateful to Hamas for giving back people who they stole from their families on October the 7th, which is extraordinary. We're hearing a lot of different stories coming out now about how people were treated. Sometimes we've seen people smiling and thanking their captives as they are reaching the International Red Cross. I think an understandable sentiment for people who, many of whom we understand, thought they were being taken out to be executed, to discover they were actually going free. You would be smiling at that point. It doesn't necessarily mean you've been happy about the last 7 weeks being held underground. But some of the stories we are hearing about, people not getting vital medicine, medical treatment, being kept on starvation rations, lots of elderly women who've been returned having lost huge amounts of weight, children terrified. One, the father of the little Irish Israeli girl, saying that she used to be a happy, exuberant little girl. She ended up having her 9th birthday in the tunnels and won't do anything but whisper now because the Hamas terrorists holding her said that she couldn't do anything but whisper. I mean, this is going to have a lifelong impact on these people.
Absolutely. These are the harrowing stories that are coming out from those that have been released. And now it's 81 Israelis and foreign nationals that have been released. And we have to keep in mind that there are still 180 or so that have not been released. So we understand that the operational pause that the IDF is currently maintaining is in order to bring back as many hostages as possible. We need to bring them back, every last one of them, and that is our role. As we hold our fire and make our preparations for the next stage, we understand that we wouldn't have been able to release the 81 without the use of military force. And so we are making the necessary steps to be prepared for a new mobilization in order to continue to engage, to dismantle and Hamas and make sure that they never wield the power of government in Gaza again, a power that they abused immensely and built their terrorist army, built their aerial explosive drone capabilities, built their terror tunnel capabilities. And so we will continue to bring home the hostages on one hand, but continue with our greater goal, that is dismantling and destroying Hamas as the governing authority of the Gaza Strip.
I want to come onto that just briefly, but just one final question regarding the hostages, though. Given that there's now some talk coming out of the Qatari negotiations that Hamas would be talking about releasing some male hostages, previously women and children, I think one man so far, but also perhaps even some IDF soldiers being released. So far, it's supposed to be civilians only. Does that suggest to you that actually they don't have as many hostages alive and in their control as perhaps we had thought, so that those 180, we know that a few dozen certainly may well be in the hands of other groups that followed the Hamas fighters and terrorists through to the kibbutz and the music festival and stole people away, abducted people away, and are using them as basically to bargain with. Does it concern you that yes, you want to get men back, and yes, you want to get IDF soldiers back, but actually that there may well be people being held that you don't have any means of getting access to?
So Hamas they initiated this attack clearly on the 7th of October with a very broad strategy in mind, which included the abduction of men, women, and children. We know because that is what they've been returning up to now. It is their responsibility, for the well-being of the hostages that remain under their captive, but also for those that other organizations, and we know that there have been others that are taken or handed over by Hamas to other terrorist organizations. From our perspective, it doesn't really make a difference. They are responsible. They are the governing authority of the Gaza Strip, at least for the time being. And therefore, they need to return all of the hostages that they are holding. We are not differentiating between the women, elderly, children, or men, or IDF soldiers. We're demanding that they all come home safe and sound. That is our goal. That's what we're aspiring for. And indeed, there is extensive negotiations taking place between the government and the Qatari, with the assistance of Qatar and Egypt and the US. And that is in order to maximize the amount of hostages that are released.
Okay.
From our perspective, from the military's perspective, we need to be ready to mobilize.